Yeah, my name is Mofasi Lekota. I'm a practicing entrepreneur and businessman, and it's a pleasure really to be part of this SMME show. I believe that SMME is an engine of growth and job creation in any economy, and our country desperately needs the efforts of entrepreneurs at the level of SMME to kickstart the job creation initiatives to alleviate poverty amongst our people. The challenges of business are normally the same. The main challenges, the core challenges. Um, Entrepreneurs of 20 years ago would have been faced with funding challenges. So 20 years down the road, all entrepreneurs will still be faced with funding challenges. There's only so much capital in the market and so many competing ideas. So to solve the funding challenge, you have to come up with an idea that can be sold to investors or to funders. So that's you have to expect that if you're playing rugby or soccer, you're going to be injured at one point or the other. Contact sports has occupational hazards of contact sports is injury at one stage or the other. You got to avoid it. You got to train. You got to train hard to be fit. Similarly, in business, you are going to get funding challenge either as a startup or growth capital or working capital as your business grows. So that's a given. The second challenge that is really common in almost all businesses is the lack or limited talent, availability of talent. Again, you have to expect that. If you decide to do agro-processing, you're not going to be picking up a lot of people who are unemployed, who are skilled in agro-processing. Some you have to train, others will find in the marketplace. There's only a limited talent in the market of any specific thing, whether it's ICT, whether it's, I'm not really talking about non-business, non-productive or non-business related skills. So you will have to face the challenge of limited skills. How do you find that? You have to compete against other people that are in that type of business. That's number one. Number two, you have to be willing to train some people. You meet them. They don't have the necessary experience, but we have confidence in their ability for whatever reason, and that we can talk about later. You have to be willing to invest in their skill. And my own experience has been that when you invest in people's skills, don't only invest for your organization. Be willing and prepared that you're going to lose some. Try to pick the best out of the pool of trainees, but understand you are training people for the industry that you are in. You will lose some of them. People are, skill like capital is small by. The third challenge in business is execution. There's a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs, a lot of potentially good entrepreneurs who have brilliant ideas, but they never, ever get to a point where you execute. So that is like a nightmare. If you dream about something at night, the following morning you most likely forgot it. You enjoyed the dream when it lasted. So it's useless. If the idea that is never taken from an idea to reality, to practice, you may as well just forget it. And I know there's a lot of good business ideas that are stillborn because their conceivers were not able to execute. So that is critical. So if you have the capital, you find a way of coming around the capital challenge, which you will find. Whether you're doing an SMME, really at a micro level, or you're doing a medium-sized business, there will always be a challenge. Not all of us have aunties and grandmothers and grandfathers that have, piggybacks that can finance businesses. So once you have solved that capital challenge, we have identified the people, we have recruited the people that you're going to need, the talent that you're going to need. You have to execute. The key ingredient, in my opinion, it's confidence in oneself to say, I can do it. Unless you reach a stage of confidence where you have an idea, you've got all the ingredients ready, you need the confidence to say, yes, I can do it. So confidence goes along with willingness to take risks. Taking risks, I think one of the underlying threat of fear for risk is failure. You've got to be willing to say, yes, I'm confident that I can do this. But if you fail the first attempt, you've got to be willing to take the failure as a lesson and move on. Keep on doing it. So the key experience that I've seen in my case is willingness to repeat. Not repeat the same mistake, but keep on doing it. You're chasing an idea, you have to keep on doing it. You've got to be committed. I can tell you there's a business that I'm involved in that took me well over 5 years. And all the three ingredients that I talked about, the three challenges that I spoke about, each one of them was a challenge: the funding, the people, and execution. So it's important that you develop confidence that I can do it, and go out and do it. The likelihood is nobody succeeds the first time around. Be willing to do it over and over again. Incrementally improve your execution, and ultimately you will succeed. I mean, that's almost a guarantee. The next issue that is, I think, is important, particularly with SMMEs in today's environment. In order to start a successful business and to grow it, and a successful business is the one, in my definition, that is able to scale up, to grow. If you start it and it's successful, success is situational. You're successful at that point in time. So you've got to be willing to grow what you have, to sustain the success. The key issue there is innovation. And it sounds like a big term, sometimes very, very intimidating. We're not all Bill Gates. We're not all Mark Zuckerberg. They innovated, they grew their businesses, but there are opportunities of innovation all around us. Whether you're in the taxi industry, how can you innovate in the taxi industry? And I'm not saying this is an innovative idea. Maybe you come up with an idea, say, every passenger that comes in my taxi in summer, I'll give him a bottle of cold water. That is simple innovation of service. Look out for those areas where you can innovate in your own space, in your own area of business. Unless you innovate, you're not going to grow, because people will just copy what you're doing, and they'll do it better, and you will regress whilst they progress. So innovation is key. So in today's technologically available, where technology is available, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper by the day. There's a lot that you can do with technology, whether it's delivery of service, whether it's production processes, whether it's communication with people and customers and suppliers. Innovate. You can't do the same thing that your old general dealer in the township or your old mini supermarket in the urban areas have been doing and expect to succeed. We know there's a lot of examples where the old papa and old mama, had this little shop and just kept on doing it the same way. A little book where they give credit, same stock. You're guaranteed to die. That business is guaranteed to die. You have to innovate in order to grow. Look, there's a lot of research that indicates that parental upbringing has very little contribution to success in entrepreneurship. There's a lot of research that proves that. There's also a lot of research that proves that formal education is not necessarily a prerequisite to success in entrepreneurship. And I'm not saying people should not go study. You have to go study if you can, and if you can afford it and you have an opportunity to go study. It will just enhance your chances of success. But my view is your current situation and where you come from should not determine any longer where you're going. We have a lot of issues in our history. We have a lot of individual issues in our families. You can spend the rest of your life complaining about that, how your father or mother did not give you the necessary opportunity and resources to study, how the system of racial discrimination did not allow me to do this, and we can spend the next generation complaining about it. Now, let's take it from today and say, this is what it is. I come from this kind of background. And this background is impoverishing me at this point in time. And unless I change my own situation, it's going to impoverish me into the future and my children. So what do? I think the biggest motivation is poverty. Turn around poverty. If I'm not able to put food on the table for my children and my loved ones, that should be a hell of a motivation to get up in the morning, to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, instead of mellowing in my own suffering and my own poverty. I got to do something about it. Maybe I got to go look for a job. Maybe I got to bake those fat cakes very early in the morning and sell them to people at the taxi rank. Do something. Forget about the past. There's very little that can be done today and in the future that will correct that 100%. Water under the bridge, the bell has rung, you can't unring it. Move on. Move on. Take your situation today and just move on. And there's no better motivation. Nobody can motivate you. I mean, excuse me, I respect motivational speakers and all those consultants that motivate people. But the key motivation comes from inside. It has to come from within you. To say, I cannot accept my situation as it is. I have to do something about it and do something about it. I think my journey is not, it's not like many other journeys of entrepreneurs. The biggest challenge that I've had is slightly different. I've been relatively fortunate in my past career where I've held very good positions with very good companies. And the ambition of every corporate employee is to ultimately become a senior person, if not a chief executive of an organization. And I reached that pinnacle at a relatively young age. But from the very first time I graduated from university, I knew I wanted to be in my own business. Now, the biggest challenge was, with all the relative success that I've achieved within corporate, with all the benefits and the good salary and the lifestyle that salary brings to you and your family, it's very difficult to break away from that. It's very, very difficult. I mean, walking away from a company car and giving your manager the keys of the company car, and from there taking a train home, it really is a difficult Rubicon to jump. So for me, that was the most difficult thing. I was earning relatively well. I was, living a comfortable lifestyle because of the corporate environment that I was working in, but I knew deep down that this is not me. This is really not for me. I have to jump at some stage. And what changed everything? There's a friend of mine, and may his soul rest in peace, who passed away a few years ago, who, because I was complaining to him all the time, he would say, look, you are earning you moved from being a trainee to financial manager to this to CEO. What do you want? And I keep on complaining about how unhappy I am in corporate. The politics, the processes, the whole business culture is just not me. I need to be on my own. I need to be in control of my fate and my destination. So casually, a friend of mine said, listen, I'm tired of all this now. Just go on to the Carlton Center. I think the Carlton Center has 50 floors. Go on top of the Carlton Center, throw yourself from the rooftop, and hope that before you land, some angels, some entrepreneurial angels will catch you and take you into business. And I mean, it was figurative, but I kept on thinking, so I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that physically. It was figurative, and I understood him to saying it figuratively. So, but that statement stayed with me for quite a while. And one day I actually just jumped, not from the Carlton Center, but from a very comfortable position. I resigned not knowing what's going to happen. I don't encourage anybody to do that. I left the company car. I saved a bit of money, and I started my business. It was the month of September. My family was used to Christmas holidays because of my secured salary. That September and October, I had to say to them, this year we might not have a holiday. We're not going to go to our favorite holiday spot. But I worked like I've never worked before. And I'm happy to say, end of October, I was able to issue my first invoice. And I was paid by check at the time, and I think somewhere in my personal library, a copy of that check is still there. And that check managed to take us to some holiday. And the rest is history after that. And I've never looked back. Each time, let me just say that each time I think about going back to that environment that I jumped from, I wake up sweating in the morning, even after 30 years in business. Even at this level of at this age, I get up in the morning sweating, just the thought of going back to corporate. And I get up and do something. So I fear I fear that environment so much that I'll do anything possible, obviously legal, to ensure that I never go back there. But I must provide a rider to that. I've learned a lot in corporate, and I would want to encourage young people, look, you work for someone or for some company, they train you and pay you. What a pleasure. Look at it as training. Contribute to the success of that organization, because the more you contribute, the more you learn and the more they'll teach you. But everybody has to have an agenda of self-interest. You have to have that. That I'm going to spend 5 years here. I'm going to spend X number of years. I want to learn this. I want to learn that. I want to learn that. From there, I'm going to say, thank you, boss. Goodbye. And I'm going to do my own thing. People don't mind that. Corporations don't mind that. As evidence of that, you stay too long, they'll actually fire you, ultimately. So leave before they fire you. Take the skill, go use it for your own benefit. At the risk of being controversial, I would say now, you'll see why I'm so potentially controversial. I would say the key ingredient there is reinvestment of your profits. And I call it basic financial literacy. A lot of business people in South Africa, particularly the young ones, and I'm not sure, a lot of them are not really entrepreneurs, they are tenderpreneurs. They will win a tender, and they are not able to distinguish between revenue and profit. It's a critical requirement. I try to teach everybody. My children are bored with this lesson because I hammer it all the time. Know the difference between turnover or revenue and profit. And when we have a business, you're the big boss. Decide what salary you're going to pay yourself. You can be very generous if you have enough cash flow coming out of that business. If it's 20,000 a month, if it's 100,000 a month, stay with it for at least a year. Pay yourself that salary for a year. Don't go dipping into the cookie jar all the time. You've got to reinvest the profits that you make. That is the engine of growth. If you have, and I try to simplify it sometimes by giving an analogy of a cow. You have a cow, a female, that can give you calves in the future. That gives you continuous supply of milk. You don't kill that cow. You feed it. You feed it, you get milk, you get calves, you don't go for meat. So, it's any entrepreneur, any business person who, in my view, in my very humble view, does not follow that rule of reinvesting the profit and differentiating between profit and revenue is bound to fail. Now, this is where the controversy comes. We have classic examples in our communities where people use revenues to buy very expensive cars, consumption items, very expensive clothes, expensive drinks in bars, and that is a disaster. I had made a bet, and I won't mention names, with one of the business people a few years ago, who was flaunting the revenue, and I say revenue because I don't know his income statement. I don't know what expenses he was incurring in business, but it has to have been flaunting revenue. And I said, I give this individual 3 years. He is going to go under. There is no business, and I'm talking legal business, where you could generate on a consistent basis enough revenues, enough profits, whilst you are eating the top line. Top line is revenue. So reinvest the profits, make the profit, reinvest them, and it's not a sin to see cash in your bank. You don't have to spend it all. Rather reinvest it. That's really, I think that's key in my view. I was saying entrepreneurship is about starting up something, growing it to a level of sustainability. And now, the key, all of us grow old. You have to have an exit strategy. How am I, from the day you started, you have to have an exit strategy. And in a free enterprise environment, the best exit strategy is a listing or selling it to someone. That is the best exit strategy. Because you can run this thing until you can't move anymore because of your arthritis and all other illnesses associated with age, and it will just diminish in value. You have to plan that this one, I'm building this one, and that instills discipline too, because if you're going to sell it to somebody in the future, you have to have disciplined financial records. The previous generation, not previous generations, many people will diminish the value of their own businesses by taking too much profit without reinvesting it. So you are taking value out of the business. And when you have to sell it in the future, whoever is going to buy it will say, but you're making 10,000 Rand profit. You're making $1 million profit. And your argument of saying, no, I was making 2.5 million profit, but I was just taking a little bit. Nobody's going to listen to that. So you have eaten your cookies before time. There's a complex, not complex, and some of this terminology is just they're intimidating. When somebody buys your business, they look at your history of profit and they project, if you were making so much in the past, let's say for the past 5 years, the likelihood is you can make so many millions or thousands into the future. So the past convinces them that the future projection is possible. And you have to come up with a plan to say, this is how I'm going to make sure that I achieve the future profits. And then they take a factor. And a lot of it, there's a bit of science behind it, financial science behind it. To confuse you, they'll call it a price earnings ratio. Just to confuse you, it's just a jargon that effectively says the profits that I'm buying the future profits of your business. So the value of your future profits to me today is so much. So there are a number of methods to value business, but at the end of the day, they'll be more convinced you have done it in the past that the likelihood is you'll do it in the future. So if you have diminished your value, future value in the past by taking more profit than you should, because you're not even declaring it properly. You're hiding it from the tax man, and you're doing all those, funny things. Unlike if you declare it properly as dividends, it's recorded in your books as dividends, then the prospective buyer knows how much you have benefited and they can prove it. So that is key. Start a business with an intention of selling it in the future. Keep your records as clean as you can so that you derive value, full value in the future. The issue of employing people in business, no entrepreneur in the world, doesn't matter how altruistic you are, no entrepreneur in the world wakes up in the morning and say, my objective is to employ people. No one does that. No business person does that. The motivation of every entrepreneur is to make profit, to make money. Now, the natural progression and growth of business is in such a way that the more it grows, the more people it wants, it demands. A lot of them. I mean, there's technology today, but so when the business grows, it requires more talent, whether it's technological or human. So the focus of an entrepreneur should be, let me grow my business. And when the business grows, employment grows. But so employment growth is an unintended consequence of a growing business. So even in policies, this is where we sometimes miss the point. Even in public policies have got to incentivize the business person to grow the business, not to employ people. Because when the business grows, naturally the business employs people, more people. Forget, and my heart goes to those people that have been affected by this, but forget about the health and the social implications of COVID for a moment. A true entrepreneur does not allow external factors that he or she has no control over to own and determine their destination. I will put it another way. A true entrepreneur, regardless of the external factors, adapts his business and strategies, sometimes even your business model, to make money. So the test of true entrepreneurship is, do you make money during a boom, economic boom? That's what I'm talking about. And you also make money during an economic bust. With the same business, maybe an adapted business or a redefined business. An entrepreneur has got to make money through thick and through thin. We all know COVID will pass at some stage. Something else will come. That will affect business. We'll have a boom and we'll have a bust. That is predictable. We all know that. Now, if we know, what we don't know is when that will happen and how it will come. But we know that sometime in the future there's going to be a boom. So during that boom, how you use your money, you invest, you reinvest, you plan for the bust. So when the bust comes, you either have enough cash or alternative business that will generate money. So COVID, and I said, not in terms of health and social impact. In terms of business, it's an unacceptable excuse. It's a very lame excuse. A few years ago, we were complaining about, was it the technology bubble that burst? There were subprime problems in financial services. There will always be a reason why we complain. Those people that are complaining about external factors they have no control over should rather go work for government. Then they will have a guaranteed salary and source of income. Business has no room for that. And look, I mean, we obviously applaud the efforts of government the world over. And our government has tried the best that they can too to assist struggling businesses. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to save on a sustainable business, on a sustainable basis. Nobody's going to save the business except the entrepreneur herself. So whatever capital injection will be a temporary relief is band-aid over a wound that needs antibiotic, or on an ailment that needs surgery. Band-aid is obviously welcome. It's welcome. It alleviates pain, and it gives us space and time to reflect and to plan and adjust. But it's not a solution. Cannot be a solution. Simon, I'm so excited about the present and the future. To the very extent that I wish I could inject youthful energy in there's unbelievable opportunities. They're all over. Yeah, it's a state of mind. Yeah, but I'm very the future holds so many opportunities. The present and the future hold so many global opportunities. I mean, the concept of globalization itself embeds so many opportunities. A young woman sitting in a small village outside Nairobi can do business with a middle-aged woman, man, or whatever, sitting in Harlem today, real time. You can do business with anyone, anywhere in the world, anytime. Yeah, what opportunities are? I mean, this was not possible a few years ago. So globalization comes with a lot of opportunities. We just have to think outside our immediate environment. I say to anybody who's willing to listen, that whatever idea you have, you've got to try to be the best in the world, because you're no longer competing with only business people in Polokwane or Tzaneen or Makhado or Johannesburg. You're competing with everybody else out there. So try to be the best in the world. The second thing, try to dominate that environment. Try to dominate it. So scale up. There shouldn't be a limit. Just scale up, make it as big as possible. And that goes back to that confidence in oneself. That I can do it. I'm the best in the world, and I can do it. So in terms of Limpopo, now it's really taking it to Limpopo. I'm very, very excited. The province presents unbelievable opportunities. You can just throw a die and say 6 represent agro-processing, 2 represents mining beneficiation, 3 represents, and so on, professional services. What opportunities? I mean, the question that we should be asking ourselves is not where opportunities lie. It's in so many opportunities that are available out there. Which ones do we zero in on? As an individual entrepreneur, you have to make a selection at some stage, because there's also another source of paralysis where you plan, review, research, do feasibility studies about so many things and never get anything done. But I think the critical ones in Limpopo, in my view, are around the economic competitive advantages of Limpopo. Firstly, its location. Limpopo is the last province, the northernmost province of South Africa. You have the rest of the continent north of Limpopo. What a market. What a market. And with improvement in infrastructure, improvement in technology, what a market to sell to north of us. Secondly, if you look at Limpopo, it's got the potential and ability to supply the whole country with food, all sorts of food. Staple food, fruit, vegetables, all sorts of food. What an opportunity to supply the country and our northern neighbors through food, agro-processing. Huge opportunities. I mean, sometimes you talk about the potential of fruit processing or vegetable processing in Limpopo, and people say, acha. Yes, acha, but there's so many others that you can process and sell globally. Mining. We have such unbelievable mining deposits. Yes, there's an opportunity to go scrambling with other global players to try to get mineral rights, mining permits to extract the minerals. But the bigger opportunity is processing those minerals, selling them in value-added form, locally and internationally. We cannot complain about the potential of Limpopo. I think we can complain about how we exploit those opportunities. And finally, with Limpopo, historically, Limpopo had the largest number of boarding schools, particularly for the black community. There were, kids will travel from KZN, Gauteng, to come and study in Limpopo, because we had all those boarding schools. Almost every village had some kind of a boarding school arrangement. And the latest benefits of that, some figures that are coming out of the Innovation Hub, is the level of mathematics, science, knowledge is disproportionately more endowed in Limpopo than a lot of other provinces. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Few companies that I know that are involved in application development, high-level technology development, coding, and so on. They are amazed. What is it about kids from Limpopo with a relative high knowledge and capability of science and mathematics? So we have the talent, we have the resources, natural resources, we have the weather, we have the geographic location. We have to just go get it. We just have to go get those opportunities and exploit them. So I'm very excited. Okay, there's a risk here of sounding a bit arrogant, but I'll go on and say the statement that I spent a few years in business evaluating very senior talent for companies. Business is called executive search. And in the 10 years that I've been in that business, there's not been there's been one, which it's not necessary to talk about, but I've really placed well over 500 people in very senior positions, from executive to second level positions in parastatals and multinationals. I have never recommended a wrong candidate. And that's a combination of gut feel and experience. And when one, first 5 minutes, you probably know if this person is going to work out or it's not going to work out. First 5 minutes. Entrepreneurs are the same. And one of the things that I place a lot of emphasis on or reliance on is reliability. If somebody says, I'm going to call you at 11 o'clock tomorrow, and I interact with a lot of entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs who are seeking advice, who are seeking guidance. If you say to me, I'm going to call you at 11 tomorrow, the 27th or 28th of whatever month, call me at 11. Or send me a message at 11 and tell me why you can't call me at an appointed time. If you say to me, I'll send an email before such and such a date, send that email. Otherwise, I tick you off. I tick you off. If this thing is so important to you, the equivalent of that is you're going to get into business and promise your customers to deliver a product or a service you are not going to deliver because that's you. It's your personality. You are unreliable. Don't be in business. Go work for grandma. The second thing is passion. So if you have an appointment, you keep your appointment, and I'm very, very strict about that. If you don't keep that appointment, you're out. Because it's a waste of my time. It's a waste of everybody's time. Second thing, passion. If you are not excited about your idea and you show that passion and excitement, who's going to be excited about it? And I'm not talking about animated expression of excitement and pretense and rehearsed. It has to come from deep down in here. You can see it. You can recognize it when you see it. Passion, excitement. This person believes in what he's talking about. It could be the worst, in your opinion, in my opinion, it could be the worst idea, but it's not for me to judge that. I cannot judge the validity of an idea, but I can judge the presence or absence of passion and excitement. So that is important. The final thing is willingness to work hard. You have never worked harder unless you work for yourself. The thinking that self-employment is an escape from hard work, it's false. I used to work primarily in a financial environment where I knew that once a month, because I was working for a few global companies, you know that you have a deadline to meet. If you don't submit your financial statements, management report on a particular date at a particular time, it has a chain reaction of the whole global network. So there's no room. If it's 12 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock, or ideally 5 minutes before 12. So I knew that 1 week every month, I'll have to leave my work at 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure, because you depend on other people to give you the reports for you to prepare your final report, and then New York and Lisbon and London depends on your input to prepare their global report. Now, I thought that was hard work until I jumped from the building and started working. I've never worked that hard. I really have never worked that hard. I worked very, very hard. So an entrepreneur has to be willing to put in the effort and recognize the fact that it's the beginning of the hardest work you've ever done. Lots of benefits after that. And as time goes on, you start employing people, you start delegating, the load eases off. But at the beginning, you are the marketing manager, you are the production manager, you are the HR manager, you're the everything. You are the salesman, you are a sweeper, you are a tea lady, tea boy. Sorry to use those terms, but that's what you are. When I started my very first business, there were two of us, my PA, in an office that was not finished. We used Coca-Cola crates for a month. We said I had 2 Coca-Cola crates in there, but we worked hard. So it's hard work. Yeah. I really don't have the physical capacity to help out people. And I don't want to give a promise that I cannot deliver. There's a lot of organizations out there that help people who are aspirant entrepreneurs. However, with the limited capacity that I have, I'll be willing to look at assisting one or two people who have ideas that they've advanced to some level, and they just want, a little bit of a push, but truly, I don't have the capacity to help multitudes of people and aspirant entrepreneurs. There's a lot of NGOs and organizations that do that. That doesn't fall within my business model anymore. So the little that I am able to do is more my own time, corporate social responsibility, and that is limited. But the call to action is, there is nothing that frees a human being than self-employment. If you to really think about it, working for someone sucks. Whose wealth are you creating when you're working for someone? You're creating wealth for the owner of the business, obviously. The only compromise is if you are a shareholder in that business. So, work, full-time employment, it's a temporary phase towards self-employment. You've got to take it that way. I'm working for IBM because I want to learn IT skills. In 10 years' time, I'm going to create my own business in ICT. And IBM does not mind that, I'm sure. IBM as an example, not as a... So, go and create your own businesses and free yourself from the yoke of employment. Yeah, it has been a great pleasure to be part of this initiative. And I want to wish all aspirants and practicing entrepreneurs the best of luck. You will need much more than luck. Hard work is critical, but innovation is also very important. And I know with good effort and dedication and commitment, you will succeed. Finally, I really just want to say that there's nobody who's going to create jobs for you. You're going to have to create your own jobs. Get up, start your businesses, grow them, and employ people. All of the best.